Hello everyone and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's mostly pretty good and maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a film that absolutely sucks and it should remain in the depths of hell. And today the two reviews I will be discussing are, I believe, my first two fantasy films I will be discussing on this channel. Um, One is regarded as a very good movie. The other one is you know maybe not as well received initially, but has gone on to uh, gain some good traction over the years. But the first one I will be discussing today is actually the first Jim Henson film I'm going to be discussing, which um, I'm honestly very excited about, and that is The Dark Crystal, released in December of 1982. Um, Now, to discuss my history with this film, I never really honestly heard of this film um, for quite a while. Actually, I've obviously heard of Jim Henson from like his work on the Muppets and some of the other films that he did, including the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, which was I believe his last film that he did. But I never knew that he made films before that. And The Dark Crystal is certainly one of those films. Um, Over the last few years, though, I've started to get into more of Jim Henson's work, and The Dark Crystal came up several times. Um, and so back in 2018, I picked up this really fantastic Digibook, which again, I will be discussing or showing off later on in the review because I do think that this is a very nifty release. I believe this, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this was also released as either a standalone Blu-ray edition or maybe even on 4K at the same time. I believe so. I know that Labyrinth, when it came to its 30th when it got its 30th anniversary edition, it was released in a standard Blu-ray Digibook and then as a 4K release. I don't know if it's the same for this one. But I believe at the time, for some reason with this one, which again I'll go into depth about this in when I get to talking about this edition. It just for this one it just has anniversary edition. Um, I have no idea which anniversary it is because again it doesn't even say it. At least with the Labyrinth Digibook, it said 30th anniversary. So, this was a 2018 edition, so that would probably make this the 24th anniversary edition. Because if it wanted to make it wanted to be a 25th anniversary edition, and this edition came out in 2018, then the film must have been released in 1983. But anyway, enough dawdling. Let's get on to the review. Um, So this was made with a budget of $15 million, and domestically it made over 41 million. So far, I have been unable to figure out how much money it made worldwide, but it was a moderate success. Which I can see why, which we'll discuss later on in the review. Um, but and this was directed by both Jim Henson and Frank Oz. Now, obviously, as I discussed, Jim Henson is one of the most famous puppeteers that ever lived, and unfortunately, like I said earlier, he did unfortunately pass away a few years ago, back in 1990. But like I said, he was well known for making like the Muppets, the Dark Crystal. Also, he made, like I said, Labyrinth, and he was a part of the special effects team for the first Ninja Turtles film. He was also well known for The Storyteller, which was, I believe, a short-lived TV show, and I believe also all of the Muppets films until like I said, his untimely death. Um, Now, if I had Labyrinth on me, I would discuss it after I did this review on the Dark Crystal, but unfortunately, I don't currently have it right now, so you'll see what the next review is at the end of this one. So, but anyway, let's get on to the plot synopsis. So basically, Jen, played by voiced by Stephen Garlick, raised by the noble race called the Mystics, has been told that he is the last survivor of his own race, the Gelflings. He sets out to try and find a shard of the Dark Crystal, a powerful gem that once provided balance to the universe. After the crystal was broken, the evil Skeksis used sinister means to gain control. Jen believes that he could prepare the Dark Crystal and bring peace back to the world if he can only find the remaining shard. Now, like I said earlier, um, I never really heard about this film when I was just starting to get into, like the whole, like when I started really getting into movies, like initially. But over the years, I have heard about it several times when the name Jim Henson was brought up. Um, and, and this was one of the more popular things to discuss, when his name was brought up. And so, you know, some things about this film I think are really good, but I think this film overall is a good flick for everyone that everyone could watch. It's just some parts about it that are kind of, and not about the film itself, but I'll discuss it more when I get onto the special effects side. Which, if you guys are a fan of the Dark Crystal, you guys know what I'm talking about when I get to that. But let's go over the voice talents real quick. We have Stephen Garlick, as I said, who plays Jen, who is basically the main character of the film. I think he does great. With the lines that he's given. It just I don't really watch that much. Like puppet films per se. Cause I don't know why, but something about them for me kind of just like I'm trying to like get attached to the characters, like and like understand what's going on, but when they're just puppets for me, it kind of just seems like a bit of like it's kind of like going into the uncanny valley a bit when especially when you're trying to recreate human when you're trying to create human characters in a way, and like that's what they try to do with the main characters of this film. It kind of seems like like it's kind of like I can't really like connect with the characters, but um luckily this film has a good story to go along with, so that the whole uncanny valley thing for me doesn't really bother me that much because the story is that good. We have Lizzie Maxwell, uh, Lisa Maxwell, sorry, as Kira, who Jen stumbles upon during his adventure. I think that she does a fine performance. Um, we have Percy Edwards as Fizzgig. Uh, I gotta be completely honest. I hate this character. Um, Not because he's just like a bad written character. It's just the fact that one, I don't even know if it's a he or she. I mean, that isn't a criticism, but it's like that's kind of like a problem when you're trying to discuss a character when it's like you don't even know what gender it is because it's just a random animal that Kira has. Two, it's like, oh my god, it's kind of like to compare it with something that's like most people can relate with. It's like the Ewoks from Episode 6 of Star Wars. Like those. Well, I feel like that Fizzgig is a little bit more annoying than the Ewoks. It's kind of like in that same area where it's like you don't even understand what they're saying, and it's like I can't like it's like so irritating where it's like just shut up. Um, but I think the puppet itself I think is great. The thing that kind of creeps me out about this about Fizzgig is that like when because there's one part where like Jen and Kira are about to like leave him, and then he starts having a fit, and he opens his mouth, and he just has like 2 or 3 rows of just straight teeth, and they're like so tiny. It's just like, oh god, why'd you gotta show that to me? Um, we have Billy Whitelaw. Yes, that is the actual name of this person. Plays Agra. She does fine with this performance she's given. Um, we have Sean Barrett as Uzra or Uza, however the hell you say that. Again, I think he does fine with the lines he's given. We have Jerry Nelson as the High Priest. He only appears in like a few scenes or like 1 or 2 scenes, and I'll discuss this when I get to like favorite and least favorite scenes in this film. But oh boy, that character has one of the most uncomfortable scenes in this whole film. We have Barry Dennan as the Chamberlain. Um, I think like some of these characters I feel like are just like some characters in film I just like their characters are just so like weird that I just hate them. This is one of them where it's like because to briefly go over the some plot details I didn't mention is that the high priest dies, who is like the emperor of the Skeksis, so a new one has to be chosen. What happens is both the Chamberlain and the General, played by Michael Garrett, Kilgariff. Sorry if I butchered that last name. Um, they they basically not like directly, but they basically fight over who gets the Emperor spot, and the General wins and exiles the Chamberlain. Um, the Chamberlain comes across Jen and Kira later on in the story, and uh, I guess tricks them into getting them to the dark to like this where the Skeksis are. Cause once they get there and they get into the building, he like it's obviously like one of those fake outs, but like he tries to he crushes Jen and he thinks he killed him. So it's like, well, you were exiled and then you crossed them to bring to bring the I forgot what the no, because not they're not called Jen and Kira are not mystics, but I think they're like another race. Oh yeah, the Gelflings. Sorry. Yeah, but he thinks that I think Kira is the Gelfling um that wasn't like trying to bring the shard of the Dark Crystal to like the main like crystal itself, but it's obviously like we know that it's Jen who has the shard itself. So it kind of just seemed like that was just kind of pointless. So what was the point of that? Uh, I don't know. And like I said, Michael Kilgariff as the general. I think he does fine. Um, and yeah, that really goes over all the characters. So I'm gonna talk about favorite and least favorite scenes, and then we'll go on to the rest of the points. Okay, so now we're gonna be talking about my favorite and least favorite scenes throughout the film. Now, since I thought the film, well, actually, I'll state my opinion of the film at the end. Since I was so like concentrated on the plot itself, I wasn't really able to pick out a favorite scene from this film. But I was able to. There were some scenes throughout the film that kind of just made me cringe up inside, and kind of just made me, eh. I have two. Both of them involve the Skeksis. The first one is when the high priest is like dying on his bed, and like, I think one of them comes over to like I think it was either the Chamberlain or the General, and he says oh yeah, he said, and then he like one comes over and says like tries to grab him by his hand, and all of a sudden this fucking guy just pops up and he's this basically this gargling voice that says like I'm still the emperor, and then he just dies. Like the whole like him crumbling at the end, like I can deal with that, but the whole like his voice like I'm still the emperor, and it's like fuck you, stop please. It's like one of those things where you're just like just stop, man. It's just fucking cringy. This my second favorite least my second least favorite scene is when they are all eating. You know, all the Skeksis are eating at like the dinner table, and you just see them like really anything that like the Skeksis do that isn't walking or like talking, and like for example like they do a lot of pointing throughout the film. So it's like whenever they point at something, it's like okay, at least that's somewhat normal, but their eatings. It's like you need to watch that scene for yourself, and then you could kind of understand my point. But oh god, it's just like trying to like imagine like trying to recreate like those sounds is just gross. Uh, um, but if I had to go back on the my favorite scene, it would probably have to be um the short scene when I think they were leaving the after they left Kira's like hometown after he gets attacked, and they're in the boat. Kira is like singing like while she's paddling, and then Jen gets out his little flute, which has like come out well, like it's been used throughout the in like two scenes before this, like at the beginning when we get introduced to Jen, and then, oh, there goes my mic. And then the second time when he's trying to figure out which shard or which crystal is the shard to the or the missing shard to the dark crystal. Um, which actually that's probably also another favorite scene of mine if I really have to think about it, because that scene it's like him using something instead of like figuring out like using like some like mind tricks. It's like okay, it's that one. He actually uses something that he had to figure out which one was the shard, and I think that was actually a good idea, like a good usage of the of his flute um before the well, not the Skeksis themselves, but it's like the like lackeys, like the little like minions basically, before they come in and attack the Agra's uh, Agra's place, or Agra's home actually. But yeah, probably like that's my first scene, my first favorite scene. The second favorite scene would be them in the boat when Kira's singing, and then Jen pulls out his flute and then starts like playing it along with her tune, which I think is honestly like probably like, it's probably the cutest scene in the whole film. And that's right before the one of like the I forgot what they're called, but it's like one of like the birds or one of the flying bird minion things for the Skeksis arrives and notices them, or like notices them. Um, I guess to before I get onto the fun fact and the score and then my final rating for the film, might as well go over this fantastic Digibook edition of the film, because I believe this was released first around when Blu-rays, like probably like 2008, I think. Actually, I'm gonna go and check that real quick. Okay, so I'm looking at Blu-ray.com on my phone here. And so the first edition of The Dark Crystal was released on September 29th, 2009, which is right there. And then they came out with this edition, which is a bundle pack with Labyrinth, which was released on June 12th of 2012. And then finally on March 6th of 2018, they came out with three separate editions, with which is the 4K edition right there, the Digibook edition, which I have, and then I believe this is a Best Buy exclusive Steelbook edition of the film, which is the 4K edition. Yep, it is it is a Steelbook edition. So, will I be picking this film up on 4K? Probably not, to be completely honest, because I mean, I honestly feel like that this transfer alone is amazing for the film, especially how the 2009 edition looked. So, um, like comparing this transfer to the 2009 transfer, I think it's a significant improvement because, especially in the final scene, which I'll discuss in a little bit when I get to the visual effects. Um, in the original 2009 edition, it was pretty bad. Like, I mean, granted, it's not that good in this edition, but at least this one has a cleaned up print of the film. That one had some visible damage from the 2009 edition. This one actually the I don't think they were able to clean up the obstacles, uh, but at least they got the print itself to look very clean and nice. So I can at least give them credit for that. Um, but might as well when I'm talking about the transfer for this film. And before I get on to the fun facts and the score and my final ranking or my final rating for the film, um, I I like I think the visual effects for the film, even though they're very few and far between, I have to admit they are pretty bad. Um, like I said, I'm not talking about the puppet work or anything because that's technically in camera effects, and those look amazing. And not the matte paintings because those, I really think in any old film with matte paintings they look great. It's the blue screen opticals in the film, which again, like I said, are used very sparingly throughout the film. They look pretty bad. I think there's one shot when they're the first blue screen shot is like the bird things from they're flying away from the Skeksis or like the tower, and it's really obvious that it's effect because it's like you can literally see the white outline of each of like the puppets is like flying through, and it's like, oh god, that's really bad. But I think the worst effect in the film is the final end scene where, after the Skeksis and the Mystics combine into these, giant creatures, um, I I do give them credit for trying to something that ambitious, but it doesn't hold up well. That like it didn't look good on the 2009 edition Blu-ray, and it doesn't look good on this one. Um, like I said, it does have a cleaned up picture, and like the print is very good. The optical effects are not that good. It's still very washed out, which I do have to like they um most early 80s blue screen and green screen, or mostly blue screen, were very washed out. Like if you could literally take a look at Crawl, for example, which came out I think a year after this film, and especially at the horse riding scenes, those scenes are very washed out. Um, but um, so yeah, I think beside like the very little shots of blue screen in the film, I unfortunately I don't think they hold up that well. But even then, they're so like few and far between that I can't criticize the film that much for it. Um, to really quickly go over everything on this digibook. So there is the front, the spine, and the back. Special features. The all new special feature is the myth, magic, and Henson legacy. Go behind the scenes of this iconic film and stories with Leslie Henson and Toby Ford, and get an inside look at the Dark Crystal exhibit at the Center of Puppetry Arts. So I believe that's like a new documentary that they filmed for this edition, and I believe the rest of these special features were carried over from the 2009 edition. So deleted scenes, commentary by Brian Ford, picture-in-picture storyboard track, original Skeksis language scenes, and introduction by screenwriter David Odell. The World of the Dark Crystal documentary, Reflections of the Dark Crystal, Light of the Path of Creation, and Shard of Illusion, photo galleries, and more. So yeah, I believe the rest of the special features that I just mentioned were from the original Blu-ray edition. But I do got to say that this digibook is fantastic. So this is this is the map, which I don't think appears in the film. I think this was all made up for this edition. So you can see that where there is the castle of the Skeksis. I think here is where that's where the words the mystics live, and then they go through the swamp here. They go over here to find Agra. They go to the Pod Village, and then heal the Lance Strickers, and then I think they go here to find the learn the backstory on the but like the mystic or the Gelfling, sorry, and then they come back here again to the castle. But yeah, basically this I don't know how this is gonna look on camera, but yeah, basically this goes through their whole history, uh, the whole history of the film itself, um, and behind the scenes information and stuff like that. Oh, but yeah, I think let's try it from like right here, cause yeah, it's easier for me to handle right here. Um, see, yeah, there's some of the characters right there. Um, yeah, there's the Gelflings, Skeksis. Uh, oh, that's what they're called, the Garthen or Garfin or whatever it's called. Uh, there. Fantastic magazine. I believe this is. I know these are definitely poster designs for the film itself. And I believe actually this one is going to be the one that I might use for my thumbnail. Or the one I'm going to show you guys on Instagram. Or if you guys see the Instagram post from that. And I think these are just early concept art of potential poster ideas. And then finally there is the Blu-ray disc, which is the 2018 edition. And then behind that is where basically the climax of the film takes place. So, yeah. Really great edition. And I think this is technically the first actual Digibook edition that I got. I did get the Cars 3 Digibook before this, but technically all that had was a storybook edition of the film inside. So that didn't really count as a Digibook. This is technically the first one I had, and technically the only one that I have. Because actually, I'm gonna go and grab that Cars 3 one real quick. So yeah, this was technically the first one that I got. But if I open it up, there's the Blu-ray disc. It's basically just like a storybook edition of the film itself. It goes through all the, plot points and stuff like that, and yeah. So yeah, this technically doesn't. It doesn't really. I guess it. Well, technically, it does count as a Digibook. But not entirely. This is like the Disney version of the Digibook. But anyway, I guess to round out this review, I guess to really go over the fun fact real quick is that did you know that Jim Henson's plan for the film was to go back to the darkness of the original Brothers Grimm fairy tales. He felt like that children like the idea of being scared, and that it was an unhealthy. It was a healthy emotion for them to deal with it. So yeah, back when he was coming up with the idea for the film, he wanted, he thought of like, well, if kids don't, kids don't ever get scared, then that's gonna be really unhealthy for them. So might as well kind of make not necessarily a full out like scary movie, but make a movie with elements of like that might scare kids, from watching it, because he felt like that was a healthy emotion for them to deal with. I can see his point, but maybe some of the points that he felt like he wanted to push out to the kids as like being like scary were more like gross out to me. But yeah. The music was composed by Trevor Jones, who would later on go and do the score, the film score for Labyrinth, and the score to one of my favorite film noir sci-fi films ever made, and that is Dark City. So you know that there's some good, like this soundtrack is gonna be good, and for the most part it is. But again, like I said multiple times before, this is one of those films where the soundtrack works very good with the film, like watching the film, but by itself it doesn't really sound that good. Um, but if you guys want to go and check it out, I believe the 25th anniversary edition of the soundtrack is still available on some sites, and I will look into that. And maybe put a link down in the description below so you guys can go and check that out. So final thoughts on The Dark Crystal. I think that this is a very good film, and I feel like that, if um, if someone asked me, hey, you want to go and watch this film, I would gladly say yes. But it's probably a film that if I want to watch this film by myself, I'm probably not gonna watch it for a very long time. So I'm actually gonna give this film I know I said the same thing about Big Hero 6. But since I feel like that, I'm gonna give this film a C plus. Strictly for the fact that I feel like that I gave Big Hero 6 a B minus was kind of because it kind of just more for nostalgic reasons. While this was the first time I've actually seen the film, was for this review, and I thought that overall I think this was a good film. While Big Hero 6, the nostalgia was one point of like I liked that film, but it's still kind of just an okay film. This I feel like that this might be a really good film to watch. But I'm still gonna give it a C plus. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Click over here on my face, or click down there at the bar below where my name is, or my channel name is, to go and click that subscribe button and hit that bell icon for notifications when new videos are coming out. And click over here on for the previous two reviews. Stay tuned for later on today, where I will be discussing Legend, directed by Ridley Scott. So anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this review, and stay tuned for later on today for the Legend review. Live long and prosper. Out.